Hi everyone, it's me, Tim. Today I want to talk about how to remedy problematic behaviors. And these are on people on a team you're on. In fact, I'm going to talk about what kind of problematic behaviors you may encounter, what to do when you're peer level with them, what to do if you're above them. This actually comes from a commenter, and actually a channel member. Father Aldwin asks, you have loosely discussed this prior, but when working within a team, what practices and habits that certain devs demonstrate do you consider problematic? And how do you go about remedying them as both an equal team member and as a team lead? Okay, Father Alduin. That's a good question. And because you are a channel member, it is being bumped up into the queue. So you asked on Saturday. I'm filming this on Sunday. Monday and Tuesdays have already unlocked for the master members. So this will be Wednesdays. Let's get to it. First, let me define problematic behavior. It's really hard for me to define it. It's one of those things that, it's like that definition of porn. It's hard to define, but I know it when I see it. So I'll give you some examples. I'll give you an example of something that I think is widespread. It's in lots of industries, not just the game industry, and then one that's very specific to the game industry. So the widespread behavior, problematic behavior that I see is just people not getting their work done. Now, this takes a whole range of things. This might be people either taking too long to get something done, which, if you watched my time estimate video, that causes all kinds of problems. It's a source of crunch, which people turn around and blame management for. When, what do you do when someone says it'll take them a week and then it takes them two? Maybe they didn't work on it very hard, or maybe they did and the task was misformed or miscommunicated. Who knows? But it causes a problem. Another thing that happened, another way people don't finish their work, is they turn in something and say, I'm done, and that thing is not finished, or doesn't work. I've done this myself, so I know how bad it is, where I think I've finished something, and I check it in, and it kind of works, but it's buggy. But I've also had people literally check in work, and the first time you run the game game crashes, which means they checked something in and didn't even run the game to see if it worked. And by the way, I'm not just talking code here. I've seen art do that, where there was something so fundamentally wrong with the art that it crashed the game. Maybe it was something that had to be there. Maybe its size was too big. Maybe it didn't have the correct, there's restrictions on a lot of art, like your texture has to be a power of 2 and all that. They didn't check any of that. Yeah, we quickly learned on the code side, we better start checking all these things, and not crash because of it. But it also means that artist just threw an asset into the game and went home. Those are really bad behaviors. And like I said, it's not restricted. A lot of times when I talk, it sounds like I'm talking about code. It's not always code. Now let me talk about an industry-specific behavior that existed 40 years ago. I watched it happen this year. It is just a problem when you're working on something creative and open-ended, like a game, that has a lot of people working on it, including lots of people in the same role. So when you're working on a game that's big enough that has multiple narrative designers and multiple system mechanic designers and multiple programmers and multiple artists and animators and audio people, the problem comes in the form of these people aren't all making the same game. They've come to the team meetings, they've read the design documents, they've seen the vertical slice, they've seen the beautiful corner, and yet somehow they still think the game that's being made is this game over here, where you're trying to make a game that's over here. This has happened so many times. Sometimes I don't know whether it's willful or not. Sometimes I think they just fundamentally misunderstood the game being made. But sometimes it's willful. They're coming in and like, I know we're doing X, I think we should do Y instead. I'll give you an example. And don't worry about what game it is. Don't care about who it was. But this is, and keep in mind this has happened. I just wanted to, it's easier to understand these things when there's an example. So I was working on a game We were 2 years into a 3-year game when someone walked in my office and said, "Hey, I think we should get rid of ammo." I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" And they're like, "Yeah, ranged weapons shouldn't have ammo. They should just fire. You know, you shoot, they fire. You don't have to worry about reloading. You don't have to buy ammo. We don't have to worry about different ammo types." And I just said, "Okay, let's talk about if we were to do the thing you want to do." Because he was like, "Oh, we could, you could have that fixed in a day." Like, let's talk about that. First of all, ranged weapons have been balanced against melee weapons already, and ammo use was part of that balance. The, melee weapons are inherently worse than ranged weapons in that they don't have a big range. So the fact that ranged weapons need ammo, there is an expendable consumable that's being used up, was part of the balancing factor for that. The user interface has already been made that shows ammo for ranged weapons. That would all have to be disabled. And possibly now the UI would have to be changed, because if you just disable part of the UI, sometimes it can look unbalanced. Like some element was up here because under it was the ammo counter. Get rid of the ammo counter. Now you probably have to bring that. So it's not as simple as just going, I'm just going to comment out the section of code that draws that UI. Animations have already been made that show reload as part of the balancing, where we said, hey, this ranged weapon takes ammo. Some of them were made with really slow reload animations. That was part of their balancing. Like shotguns, generally you can only shoot once or twice, and then you have a fairly slow reload. But shotguns do enormous amounts of damage in a shorter range than a lot of like rifles do. So that's part of the balancing, was a long reload time that we show with a reload animation. So not only will that work be thrown out, and code have to be changed not to show that, but now some weapons that were balanced aren't balanced anymore. Also, as the person who came to my office pointed out, we have ammo as items. Get rid of those, and now there's a lot of loot tables that are messed up. There were loot tables that were created with ammo in them. Those are gone. So what do those things drop now? Maybe there were some things that was the majority of what they dropped, so now they drop nothing. Or if it was part of what they dropped, now they're dropping less valuable stuff. And because ammo was something we intended to be purchasable, you've just gotten rid of a money sink. And if you watch my economy video, you know that money sinks are hard to come up with and often easy for the player to avoid. Ammo is a good money sink. People want to use that really good ranged weapon they have to buy ammo. And they're complaining about having to buy it, but they're also complaining like, I ended the game with 100,000 coins. What a dumb game. So I throw out all those things, and then how do you intend to solve them? Now, I was talking as, a lead, but I've had that discussion with peers as well. And let me just say, this example is a very specific one, but I'm just saying there's lots of other ways people can demonstrate that they're not making the same game as everyone else on the team. Maybe they're always critiquing other people's work and saying it isn't right. Maybe they're always suggesting new ideas, and basically in ways showing that they want to make a different game. So how do you deal with this? As both a peer and a lead, I basically talk to them like I just did. Rather than them having come in and say, I think we should get rid of ammo, I'm like, no, stupid idea, get out of my office. I don't do that. We talked, and with that particular person, I talked for a long time. I had multiple people come to me afterwards and said, seriously? You spent 2 hours talking about that with him? You wasted both his time and your time. There was other things you guys could be doing that 2 hours. And I'm like, we can't have this issue keep coming up. So I pointed out all the problems it caused, and he of course was like, well, we can fix those. And I'm like, how? Oh, you just said we could have no ammo in a day. And I pointed out all the ways it's not going to happen. Now how long is it going to take? And how long is it going to take you to figure out how long it's going to take? And then where are we going to put that into the schedule? Basically, since we know what we're doing, we're 2 years into a 3-year game, we know what's left on what's left to do. What do you recommend we don't do in order to now do all this extra work to make this change to the game? That was part of the problem. So as a lead, though, I can go a little farther than that. You can tell the person, okay, we just talked about this for hours, pointed out a lot of the problems. This has to stop now. You are trying to make a different game. I even told this person, I would love to see a game you make, but it's not this game. if they repeatedly do this, if they're out there talking to other people on the team, trying to get things changed and all that, then it becomes a problem because we're losing a lot of time to something that I've already pointed out why we can't do. And I will have to talk to them and say, hey, if this problem keeps coming up, we're going to have to sit down and talk about this with HR. This is something that goes into your end of year review. And once HR gets involved, they want to do things like PIPs. For those of you who don't know, PIPs are performance improvement plans. These are widely used outside the game industry, and now they're starting to, I see them being used in the game industry in like the last 10, 15 years. PIPs appeared everywhere. Now, some people hate these. I know there's some people watching this video going, PIPs are awful. PIPs are just a reason to document bad behavior because you've already decided to fire them. So you make a PIP, you point out all these things that are being impossible for them to do, and then when they don't do them, you get to fire them. I've seen that happen. I'm not going to say that doesn't happen. But I've also seen people get put on a PIP that's perfectly valid. These are the things you're not doing. And they just quit. They're like, I'm not going to deal with this. I'm going to quit. And it's like, okay. I don't know what those people think are going to happen when someone calls up and wants a reference. Because we don't necessarily want to say, well, they didn't do all these things that were obviously part of their role. So we usually say, here's how long they worked here. But I've also seen people get PIPs and turn it around and become much better at their job and much better team players. And it turns out for some people, they just need to be told. It's not enough to say, don't do this. They need to be told, do this instead. In other words, they need a game plan. They need a set of step-by-steps on how to behave and how to make a game. And it wasn't that they intended to be acting badly. They thought, hey, I've got these ideas. Why don't we do them? They don't realize that at some point in a game development, it's too late for those ideas. Save them up, write them down, save them for the next game. Once they understood that, boom, they turned around and were much better. But sometimes it took a PIP to really hammer that home and make them go, oh, this is serious. I'm seriously delaying my game. I think I'm being good. I think I'm being proactive. I think I'm being conscientious. And what I'm really doing is slowing down the process. So let me throw in something too that Father Aldwin didn't ask, but I'm going to throw in here. There's a huge, huge danger in not handling problematic employees like this. And they both have to do with your non-problematic ones. People who are really committed, who are working hard, are really good team players, and are getting a lot of stuff done, are incredibly demoralized by problem employees that are just ignored, that are literally throwing a wrench in the gears, and the managers are like, because they're trying to get stuff done, and this person is actively sabotaging things from their point of view, and nothing's being done about it. So when these problematic employees cause friction, if that gets ignored, not only do the good people get demoralized, sometimes I've seen them quit. They've left and gone elsewhere because they're like, I can't work like this. I can't work in an environment where a junior can tie up a feature that we've had in the game for 2 years and we're supposed to ship in 6 months. So I've seen good people quit companies and go elsewhere because of that kind of mismanagement of problem employees. And ask anybody who's been in the industry for a long time, one problematic employee can ruin a team, depending on how problematic they are and how it's not dealt with. So this was a really good question, Father Aldwin. I hope I answered it in a extensive enough and constructive enough way that this could let you handle things if you ever are on a game team with a problematic employee.